Hello everyone, welcome to Deep Techno Elite. I am Deep Wakode. In the last session, we have seen how to install PyCharm IDE and Hello World program. In this session, I am going to talk about the important features of PyCharm and then we will take a look at the examples. Also, we will see what is variables and the scope of variable in Python. So, let's get started with subscribing the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. PyCharm is one of the most popular Python IDE. JetBrains has developed PyCharm as a cross-platform IDE for Python. In addition to supporting versions 2.something and 3.something of Python, PyCharm is also compatible with Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. At the same time, the developers can even customize the PyCharm user interface according to their specific need and performance. Also, they can extend the IDE by choosing from over 50 plugins to meet complex project requirements. PyCharm offers some of the best features to its user in the aspects of code completion and inspection, advanced debugging support for web programming, and frameworks such as Django and Flask. So, let's take a look at them one by one. So, the first feature that PyCharm offers to the developer is code completion. PyCharm has a great code completion whether it's for a built-in or an external packages. PyCharm further supports SQL Alchemy library and inject SQL code into a code written in a various programming language. In the next feature, PyCharm offers in a Git visualization in editor. When coding in Python, queries are normal for developers. You can check the last commit easily in PyCharm as it has a blue section that can define the difference between the last commit and the current one. Next, we have a code coverage in editor. You can run PyFile outside PyCharm editor. The code coverage details are everywhere in the project tree, in the summary, in the editor, and more. The next also feature of PyCharm is package management. PyCharm has a nice visual representation of all installed packages and the ability to search and add new packages. Next, we have local history. Local history is always keeping track of your changes in a way that complements things like Git. Local history in PyCharm gives complete details of what is needed to roll back and what is to be added. Next is refactoring. Refactoring is the process of renaming one or more files at a time, and PyCharm has the ability to make changes consistently and safely across hundreds of files by understanding the syntax tree. Well, these are some powerful features PyCharm offers to developers. Now let's go ahead and let's see some examples. So today we are going to learn about the variables in Python. So what is variables? Variables are nothing but reserved memory locations to store values. This means that when you create a variable, you reserve some space in memory. Based on the data type of a variable, the interpreter allocates a memory and decides what can be stored in the reserved memory. Therefore, by assigning different data types to variables, you can store integer, decimal, or characters in this variable. But Python is completely object-oriented and not statistically typed. That means a variable is initially declared to have a specific data type, and any value assigned to it must always have that type. In Python, a variable may be assigned a value of one type and then later reassign a value of a different type. You do not need to declare variable before using them or declare their types. Every variable in Python is an object. A variable name can be a group of both the letters and digits, but they have to begin with a letter or an underscore. A variable name cannot start with a number, and remember that the variable names are case sensitive. So let's go ahead and let's see how to declare a variable and assign a value to it. So here we have created this project in the last session. So I'm just going to create a new file. Simply right click on it, go to new and then select Python file, and I'm going to name it a variable example. And press enter. A variable can have short names like x, y, or more descriptive name like name, age, etc. As we have discussed, the variable name are case sensitive. So the variable name and a variable name and name are three different variables. So let's see the example. So here I'm just going to declare a variable to store the number. So let's say number, and then I'm going to assign a value to the variable number. For that I'm going to use the assignment operator, that is equal sign, and then a value, let's say 10. So here we have assigned the value 10 to the variable number. In Python, we don't need to declare the type of variable. Here, number is an integer type, and then I'm going to print the value. So let's say print followed by a parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, I'm going to say the variable number. Okay, save this and let's run the file. Select run and the file name variable example. And here you can see the value of the variable is printed on the screen. Now let's see how we can assign a string to the variable. So here I am going to create a variable name, and then let's assign a value to the variable. So I am just going to say Deepmala. String can be declared either by using a single quote or double quotes, and then let's print this. So here let's say print followed by parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis now let's have a variable name. Save it and now let's run the file. Right click on it and select run variable example. And here you go. And here we have print the name on the screen. And now let me show you an awesome thing. In Python, you can assign values to multiple variables in one line. So here I'm just going to say a variables. Let's say A, comma, B, comma, C equals, and let's say red, comma, green, comma, and the last one, let's say blue. And then I'm just going to print them. So let's say print followed by a parenthesis and a variable, let's say A, and in the next line print variable B and print variable C. Save it and let's run the file. And here you go. Here we have print the values. We can also concatenate the text and a variable. To do so, in Python we use the plus sign. So let's have a look at the example. So here I'm going to create a variable. So let's say x equals and say Python. And then I'm going to print the variable with text. So let's say print followed by a parenthesis and in a double quote, let's say welcome to, and then plus sign and a variable x. Save this and let's run the file. And here you can say welcome to Python. Okay, now we can also use the plus sign to add variable to another variable. Let's have an example. So here I'm going to say x equals and in a double quote welcome to, and then let's have another variable y equals and in a double quote here I'm going to say Python, and then I'm going to create one more variable. Let's say a equals x plus y, and then let's print the variable a, print variable a. Okay, save this and let's run the file. So here we have added two variables. Now let's see whether you can concatenate different data types like string and numbers together. So here I'm going to create a variable, let's say name equals Deepmala, and then I'm going to concatenate this string to number. Let's have a variable number equals 10, and then let's have a print statement followed by a parenthesis and a variable name plus number. Save this and let's see what happens. So let's run the file and you will get the type error message that can only concatenate string, not integer. So how we will concatenate this string with integer? Well, Python requires declaring the number as string. Once the integer is declared as string, it can concatenate both. So in the print statement, I'm going to say print name plus, and here let's say string str, and in the parenthesis a variable number, that is string formatting. String formatting is the most readable way to insert multiple values into a message. Now save it and let's see what happens. Let's run the file and it will show us the output Deepmala with integer number 10. Now that you know how to initialize a variable, now let's go ahead and let's talk about the scope of the variable. Variables can't be accessed from anywhere in the program. The part of program where a variable is accessible is called its scope. So let's take a look at the different type of variable scope in Python. The Python scope concept is generally presented using a rule known as the LEGB rule. The LEGB stands for local, enclosing, global and built-in scope. So let's see what is local scope. Whenever you define a variable within a function, its scope lies only within a function. It is accessible from the point at which it is defined until the end of the function and exists for as long as the function is executing, which means its value cannot be changed or even accessed from outside the function. Perhaps a variable is defined outside any function, it becomes a global variable and its scope is anywhere within the program, which means it can be used by any function. So let's see the example. Here I am going to define my function. Followed by a parenthesis and a colon, and inside this function I am going to assign a number to a variable and then I am going to print that number. So let's say num1 equals 10 and then let's have a print statement, print, and inside the parenthesis now I am going to put the double quote, first number is comma and num1, and then now let's call the function my underscore func and a parenthesis. So what is function? A function is a sequence of statements which performs some kind of task. We use functions to eliminate code duplications. Instead of writing all statements at every place in our code where we want to perform the same task, we use the def statement to indicate the start of a function definition and then a function name followed by a parenthesis and a colon, and then we have a function body. To run a function we have to call it. To call the function we use its name followed by the parenthesis. Now let's save this and run the file. And here you can see the output. So here we are able to print the num1 variable by calling the function. Now let's see what happens if I try to print the variable outside the function. So here I am going to say print and inside the double quote, first number is comma and num1. Now Save this and run the file. And notice here it will print the statement inside the function, and then it will show the name error that the name num1 is not defined because the num1 is local to the function, so it can't be reached from outside the function body. And now let's see a global scope of variable. So here I'm just going to define the variable num1 outside the function. Let's cut this and I'm going to paste it here before the function, and then I'm going to print the variable inside the function as well as outside the function. So let's save it and run the file. And both the statements are executed here. The global variable has its scope anywhere within the program, which means it can be used by any function. Now you understand the local and global scope. So let's go ahead and let's understand the enclosing or non-local scope. In case of an enclosing function, we need to define an outer function that encloses the inner function. The enclosing scope only exists for nested function. So let's understand this. So let's have an example. Here I'm going to define a function. Let's say num1 underscore function followed by a parenthesis and a colon, and then I'm going to define a variable. So let's say num1 equals 100, and then I'm going to define one more function. So let's say define and a function named num2 underscore func parenthesis and a colon, and then let's define a variable num2 equals 20, and then I'm going to print the variable. So let's say print and inside the parenthesis num1 and then print num2, and now let's call the function name num2 underscore func, and then I'm going to print the variable num1, print num1, and now let's call the function num1. In this code, num2 has local scope in Python function num2, and num1 has non-local scope in num2 function. A Python variable scope that isn't global or local is non-local. This is also called enclosing scope. Save it and let's run the file. And here we have the output 100, 20 and 100. So the outer variable have a large scope and can be accessed from the enclose function. Now let's see what is built-in scope. Built-in scope is a special Python scope that's created or loaded whenever you run a script or open an interactive session. This scope contains names such as keywords, functions, exceptions, and other attributes that are built into Python. Names in this Python scope are also available from everywhere in your code. It's automatically loaded by the Python when you run a program or script. The built-in scope implemented as a standard library modules named built-ins in Python 3.something. All of the Python built-in options are automatically loaded to the built-in scope when you run the Python interpreter. To inspect the names within your main global scope, you can use dir function. If you call dir function without argument that live in your current global scope, so let's take a look at these. So I'm going to print dir function, save it and let's run the file. And here you go. When you call the dir function with no arguments, you will get the list of names available in your main global Python scope. If you inspect built-ins itself using dir function, then you will get the whole list of Python built-in names let's have a look at this. So here I'm going to say print, and inside the parentheses a dir function, and here let's say built-ins. Save this and let's run the file. The built-in scope brings more than 150 names to your current global Python scope. To check the number of items in the list written by dir function, we can use the len function. So here let's say print len function, and inside the parentheses now let's have a dir function. Save it and run the file. So here you can see the length of the items in the list. Similarly, we can also check for built-ins. So here let's say print len function, and here let's have dir function, and inside the parentheses let's have built-ins. Save it and once again run the file. And here you can see the length of names that brings in built-in scope. Even though you can access all of these Python built-in objects without importing anything, you can also explicitly import built-ins and access the names using the dot notation. So let's see how it works. So here I'm going to say import space built-in, and then let's have a print statement built-ins dot, and here you get the list of the built-in objects. So here I'm going to use the sum. So let's say sum, and inside the parentheses now let's have a square bracket and a number. Let's say 10, 2, 3. Okay. Save this and run the file. And here we get the sum of this number. So you can also find the min, max, and you can also access all the names in built-ins by using the dotted attribute lookup. Well, that's all for today's session. To learn more, subscribe the channel and hit the bell to receive the notification. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like and comment below. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.